While the Jets were kicking off their offseason program at One Jets Drive, they quickly brought in a wide receiver nobody's talking about. But trust me, you're going to want to know his name before the draft day. What's up, Jet fans? I'm Julian Lacosto, joined by my co-host Nick Perry, and this is the Gangrene Report. If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's get into some Jets football, guys. According to NFL insider Tony Pauline, the New York Jets hosted Washington State wide receiver Kyle Williams on a top 30 visit yesterday. And get this, it happened the same day as the team kicked off their offseason program over at One Jets Drive. For those unfamiliar, a top 30 visit, that's a pretty big deal just because it allows the teams are basically allowed to bring in up to 30 draft prospects for private visits. And it's often a strong indicator of some serious interest in that player going into the draft. So, guys, let's talk about Kyle Williams himself. He's a standout wide receiver out of Washington State. Turned a lot of heads this season with his smooth route running and reliable hands and a very underrated explosiveness. Williams spent the first 3 years of his career at UNLV always being a productive but never really breaking out on the scene. Caught about 117 passes for 1,500 yards and 9 touchdowns over 3 years. Not bad, but didn't really grab much attention. He made the move to Washington State, where he instantly increased his production. In 2023, caught 61 passes for 843 yards and 6 touchdowns before breaking out in this 2024 season to the tune of 70 receptions for 1,100, nearly 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, and averaged 17.1 yards per reception, over 90 yards per game. He's renowned for having solid hands, 4.7% drop rate in 2023 and 6.7% in 2024, as well as being a plus contested catcher. He came down with 62.5% of his contested catches last season. And when you combine that with the fact that he can run as fast as a 4.4 flat 40, he's an intriguing prospect to say the least. The only concern is his size, considering he measured out at about 5'10", 190 at the combine. But everything else about his game really does check the boxes. Nick, what are your thoughts on Kyle Williams?
Yeah, I think Kyle Williams is obviously he's been a guy that's been talked a lot about in the draft, as we know, especially in that first round. I feel like originally when we saw him, it was like second round, maybe early second round. But then the more he keeps crawling up and up and up, and I think you made a really good point. Like having a top 30 visit is no slouch visit, and these are the guys that if the Jets were to trade back into the first round, that would be huge. But I think overall, Kyle Williams will be a great wide receiver in the NFL, no matter where he goes. I think his size may be a worry for most, like you said. I think there are plenty of serviceable wide receivers in the league who are on the smaller side, like Tyler Lockett. As we know, Elijah Moore, wasn't the best for us, but is pretty decent now. Darnell Mooney, Christian Kirk, a guy we were kind of looking at maybe getting this offseason, Hunter Renfrow. Also, like you said, his speed is great quality and a big attraction to teams. Like you stated, also, he checks every box, especially contested catch rate and drop rate stand out the most because that's exactly what every team needs and everybody wants at this point. Even if you're undersized, if you can go up and get that ball, who cares?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he's not like going to be a standout first round guy, but he could definitely be. He's climbing up boards. Originally, he was supposed to be like a late round, like mid round guy, but he's climbing up a lot of boards. A lot of people have him in the second round for us. So, he might even be a first round guy at this point. There's a lot of guys that are climbing up the boards in the wide receiver room this year in terms of the draft is not exactly top heavy. So we could see a guy like this sneak into the first round, but hoping he could be there in the second round. But why is this so interesting for the Jets? Obviously, we know that the wide receiver room is pretty barren and a big question mark outside of Garrett Wilson being our stud receiver, no doubt. But there's a lot of uncertainty with guys like Allen Lazard potentially being on his way out and the depth behind him. Darren Muji may be looking to add a little bit more juice to that room, especially with a new quarterback at the helm with Justin Fields. We talked about it previously. We don't know what we have yet in second-year receiver Malachi Corley. We did a video about it, hoping that he could be somebody that could break out onto the scene. Darren Muji made a lot of efforts to add a lot of depth in this room with Josh Reynolds and Tyler Johnson. Reynolds essentially is probably going to be your Lazard replacement, and Johnson being a young, potential high upswing type of player. We don't know what we're going to get, but hoping that could add some extra juice into the room for the future, and definitely think that Kyle Williams fits the bill for what AG and Darren Muji are looking to do in the wide receiver room, especially because he's got He's a sure-handed pass catcher that has insane speed at 4.4, 40 at the NFL Combine. So I think he fits the bill for what the guys in our room are looking to do. And remember, these top 30 visits aren't just about talent. It's about culture, fit, football IQ, and just kind of getting a feel for how a player handles himself in a pro environment. So bringing Williams in on the day one of the offseason program, I think that shows intent, and it shows a lot on our part from our front office. Nick, any final thoughts on Kyle Williams? Where do you project him going, and do you think it's a fit?
Yeah, I think he's definitely a fit for us. I think, again, using that top 30 meeting is huge for him. Getting to know him, like you just said, it's all about also IQ, cultural fit, not just about the talent in general. I think there'll be a lot of teams in the running for him, just because he's such a standout receiver in college. So teams maybe like the Broncos, the Cardinals, Raiders, maybe even the Seahawks kind of team who are looking to get a good build-up wide receiver, because they have to stack that position as well, especially after losing and teams gaining quarterbacks at both of those teams. But especially, I think one who might be looking at him as kind of Broncos, especially a playoff push team who brought in Bo Nix last year, as we saw, who made a pretty good run at the final end of the season. So hopefully he can land to us, I think, in that second round. Like you said, who knows? He could sneak in the first round. Somebody takes him, really thinks highly of him, but hopefully we can land him if that comes to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this could be, a guy that could be targeted in the second round. I think this could be a home run selection if we were to get him. Obviously, at that point, I think we're looking at offensive tackle or even tight end in round one. You never know. But this could be a guy that we could maybe get in round two. If he sneaks into round three or falls to round three, I'd love him in round three. So, guys, what do you think, Jets Nation? Is Kyle Williams a name to watch come draft day? Could he sneak into that wide receiver room and contribute early? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's chop it up. And don't forget, draft season is heating up and we've got you covered every step of the way. So like this video on your way out and subscribe if you're new. And as always, guys, go Jets.